we need to have like I feel like we need to have like Russ on the beach or something like that, like because we're getting bombarded with this storm. Russ is
Russ is bucking for the Weather Channel job.
close to South Jersey right now.
I'm waiting.
I know.
Cantor.
Yep, Cantor, I'm coming for you.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's so funny that just has not stopped. Like I figured that would be something that doesn't exist anymore, over time. But people still love to watch a guy on a beach in a hurricane.
They want the action. They want, oh look, I'm being blown back by the wind.
Oh yeah. Look, it's windy.
Well, it's funny because they were talking about the path of the storm yesterday on one of the channels, and they said that there are two computer models that a lot of the weather prognosticators are using. One is an American model, and another one is a European model. And when I saw that, and they said, well, we like the path of, we think that the path is going the way of the European model. And I thought to myself, well, European models are usually hotter.
Nice. I actually know something about this that's kind of funny, is that there's a whole controversy going on. Hello, Kevin.
Hey.
There's a whole controversy going on about this because the American Weather Bureau, has not put enough money into their models. So I talked to somebody at the Weather Channel who told me one time that they say the European model because they want to prove that the American model kind of sucks right now. Like it's just not, and they want more money put into it to be able to compete with the European model, which tends to be more accurate. So that's why you've heard in the last couple of years this influx of, the European models are saying this, and...
The European model is brought to you by Volkswagen, who apparently can't control their emissions.
Right. That's another thing altogether. So, so yesterday I talked about Hamilton. Are you familiar with this the Hamilton play?
Come on, not again.
I got to talk about it for a second.
Unless we're talking about Dougie Hamilton forcing his way out of Boston.
Dougie Hamilton. How about you, Kevin? The Hamilton play off Broadway?
I know what it is, yeah.
It's awesome.
I haven't seen it. You went and saw it?
I have not seen it, but I've gotten totally into the music, and I don't like hip hop at all. But and I'm usually not a hip hop person whatsoever.
Well, it's the hottest Broadway ticket.
Oh, yeah.
There this summer. The
tickets are like $700 a piece. I mean, but yeah. Anyway, just saying. But I got a lot of good comments about it yesterday. So when I played a little bit of it, but it's really, you have to check it out.
None from me.
None from you. You didn't get it.
I'll tell you, on Monday I can give you a review of Benders. I have it on the DVR. I haven't watched it yet, but at least it's a hockey show on IFC, so I gave it a shot.
Oh, nice. A hockey show.
I got to say, though, I read Russ's Facebook this morning, and I think that Russ has been hanging out with Mike too much, because Russ is always the most positive guy that I know. And in the last week, Russ, you've been ticked off about a lot of things.
I know.
And today he was ticked off about pumpkins, of all things.
Yeah.
So, what's your beef with pumpkins?
My beef with it tastes lousy. It's good. My dogs love it. Like, it's great for settling a bad stomach, and it definitely has a use on Earth. But I get bombarded on my timeline with all of these pumpkin photos. Hey, look, I'm drinking pumpkin spice this, and I hate it. I've always hated it as a kid. So I want the people from Adblocker to invent a pumpkin blocker so that it's off my timeline.
It's everywhere. It's not just like pumpkin pie. It's
right.
Pumpkin spice latte at Starbucks, which they started promoting in early September. Pumpkin donuts, pumpkin flavored candles. I mean, enough already, for crying out loud.
And some of your favorite flavors will be bumped for pumpkin. That's the other thing.
You guys would hate my apartment right now.
Smells like pumpkin.
I get the scents to go with the seasons. So last month was Macintosh apple. Now I plugged in pumpkin spice. So you guys wouldn't like coming over here and hanging out right now. That's all I gotta say.
We have the most weird group of people that you'd ever want to put together right now. I mean, I love it. I love that. It's just hilarious. I'm listening to hip hop Broadway. Mike and Russ are going off on pumpkins. Ty is changing his scents in his apartment monthly. Yeah. Here we are. Welcome to the HockeyBuzzCast.
I got to say that I hope that as I continue to grow older, that I do not lose my filter system, because I just filter all that stuff out. Like, I'm totally oblivious to any of that stuff. Like, what I'm interested in, I'm interested in. Everything else, I just block out. Like, it never would occur to me to get all hot and bothered about it.
Kevin, I believe in venting my spleen. I believe in just expressing everything.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Mike, Ty, Russ, Kevin, right?
Lot to talk about, so let's get right into it.
Let's get going. Hello, hockey. Whoa, let me switch to me first. We're not looking at Kevin while I say that. My camera.
It's not made for it.
I can't believe I'm even speaking. Sorry, my voice is really low. It's like, how you doing, ladies? But yeah, my voice is really down there from my cold.
And I'm very white.
This morning, I didn't think I'd be able to do this show at all, so I'm just thrilled to be here. Okay, here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It's Friday. Hello, Hockey World. It's Friday, October 3rd. And
Nope.
better low.
Nope.
Hello, Hockey World. It's Friday, October 3rd, 2015.
No, wrong date. October 2nd.
Thank you. I thought you were just shaking about my my choice of tone in my voice. All right. Hello, Hockey World. It's Friday, October 2nd, 2015.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Ty Anderson.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
I'm Kevin Allen of USA Today Sports.
And I am Eklund, and you're watching the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time to fill you in on all your hockey comings and goings. And play you all this soft and smooth jazz from the 1990s. All right, so welcome. Here we have made it to the show. We've talked about pumpkins already, so that's off the list. The Islanders are reverting back to their old goal horn. Everyone just, it's amazing. They've succumbed to peer pressure. But I want to start today, before we get into, and we're going to get into fan expectations on the few teams we missed as like a catch-all today, including most of the teams in the Atlantic. But we're going to start off today with the fact that, well, Jeremy Jacobs is in the news. Ty has come out and said that he doesn't know that there's an appetite for expansion right now. What are you thinking, Ty?
I mean, that's so out of touch. I think, honestly, Quebec City is dying for a team. They're starving for a team. And he says, well, it's a small city. Well, yeah, but so is Winnipeg. I mean, you don't have to be a huge metropolis to have a market for hockey. And I just think those comments are a bit out of touch. The market is there. Vegas is a question mark, I would assume, just based on what their concerns are. But there's definitely a market for it. It's just the fact that I don't think a lot of these cities want to fork over $500 million or the conversion rate to being, $600 million US if you're in Canada. So I don't know. I just think that there's a market for it. It's just I don't know if it's exactly what they want right now.
Yeah, I don't. Kevin? Your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I didn't take it as him saying that there was not an appetite for expansion. I took it as him saying, hey, it's not a slam dunk that we're going to, bring these teams in and, we're going to look at it hard. Because, I mean, the argument against it would be, hey, look, things are going well. They've got a 30-team league. Their revenues are growing. Other than bringing in the $1 billion that they'll share for the two teams, the 30 owners, do they really need to expand? So that would be the argument. And I thought, I read that as Jacobs just saying, well, everybody hold their horses a little bit. That, let's just look at this, and we haven't fully committed yet. But, I got to believe when they're voting and they look at the $1 billion, the two $500 million payments that each of those teams are making. I mean, even if you take out administration costs and putting some money into the league offices, the owners are going to get $30 million plus each. I just don't see them not doing that. And in addition, each of those teams will bring in, probably combined it has to be over $100 million in revenue every year. So over a 10-year period, that increases, the revenue for the league by, another $1 billion. So I think ultimately, even though I think he said, let's be cautious and moving forward, which is I thought his message was, I don't think this changes anything. I still believe there's going to be two teams added at some point.
I also think that it was curious that he mentioned Seattle as part of his comments. He mentioned the fact that with the 16 in the East and 14 in the West, that expanding in the West would make more sense. And he also seemed a little bit miffed that the Toronto market didn't make an expansion bid, that there wasn't part of that. And the only thing I can interpret by that is, if they would have had more bids, there would have been more pressure. There would have been more activity in terms of the NHL getting what they wanted, maybe driving up the price on expansion teams. But I don't think he poured cold water on it. I think he's just basically saying, we don't have to do this right away. We don't have to do this in 2017. Maybe we wait a couple more years. And I don't think Quebec is going to lose interest if they have to wait a couple more years. I think they've been waiting for a long time. They've been waiting since 1995, I believe. So I think they want it now. But I think it's more just a cautionary than hold your horses type of thing.
But why did he comment at all? Did somebody ask him, like, why come out with this?
Yeah, they did. They had an interview. ESPN had an interview with him. So, yeah, I mean, I think Mike's completely right on this, too, about with regard to, I think he wanted to sort of plant a seed. Like, Gary Bettman has only said, unless this has changed and I missed it, that the expansion fee would start with a 5. Like, right. So, it could be $5.85. And maybe he is planting that seed, or $5.75 or $5.50 or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I think he just kind of trying to keep the mystery in this a little bit. So
there you go. Yeah, I think you hit it there. That's where I think you hit it. I'm going to throw a little conspiracy theorist stuff to this here. I think that this is a little bit of, okay, first of all, the economy is what the economy is, right? And I think that that's playing into this. That they're not going to sit there and say, at this time, it's not that easy for Quebec to come up with $500 million, because there is a lot of, there's a lot of issues going on with the Canadian dollar. But I think that a lot of this is a negotiation to a degree. We're not going to be, the NHL. If the world thinks the NHL is going to expand, then the teams hold a little bit of the power. I mean, the possible expansion teams, because the NHL looks bad if they don't expand. If everybody thinks it's a slam dunk, they're going to expand. So I think the idea here is you have to keep some of the power in this negotiation, and I think that's what Jacobs is doing. I can't help but think he got approval to talk about this before talking about it, because just because the NHL is, of all the things that they are incredibly hush-hush on, this is one of them. Now, maybe Jacobs is just, old enough.
I think we learned from the last lockout that he'll pretty much say anything, anytime.
Well, and don't forget, Gary Bettman works for him, not vice versa.
No, I know that's very true, but you know how the NHL is with this kind of thing.
Yeah, but I mean, Gary Bettman still has to build a consensus, and one of the key players is Jacobs. So, Jeremy Jacobs can say, he is the 800-pound gorilla, on the board of governors. He can say what he wants. So, let's put it this way. I guarantee you Gary Bettman didn't call and harangue Mr. Jacobs for his comments. I think he sure read that and said, okay.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
And there may be some hesitancy upon, regarding some owners who don't want to split the pie in 32 ways rather than 30 ways. I mean, you're going to get that short-term hit of money, that $30 million. But that's great, and I'm sure all teams will take that. But after that, that's gone. Then it's whatever money they get from the NBC contract and from Sportsnet and from everything else. It's split 32 ways. So that's a decrease for those teams once those two teams are in the league.
Yeah, and there is revenue sharing, and if Quebec falls into that category, you're going to be sharing. Montreal and Toronto are going to be giving some of their money to Quebec City at some point. But I do think, Mike's right on that, but I do think once you reach the level of income they are now approaching, and the difference between 30 and 32 teams, it isn't quite as significant. Like getting that $30 million plus up front is a much bigger deal than losing a couple or $3 million each year for the next 10, 12 years.
Yeah,
I think one of the interesting parts about this whole thing has always been, the argument against it has been that the league will get too watered down and the talent won't be as strong. I mean, if we looked at free agency right now, you can basically build two teams out of who's on the market or who was on the market through most of the summer, and factor that in with the expansion draft and drafting in general. And I don't think that part of it would take a major hit.
No, I agree with you. And we're seeing so many players sent back that don't necessarily need to be sent back. I mean, and yet they have to be sent back based on the current situation. I mean, it's definitely better for them to be sent back, but I agree with you. I mean, and I can't help but think though that this gives you a little bit of insight into how the board of governors work though with this thing, because you do have so many different people and different opinions there. They're not all the same, and this isn't just what we usually see. They definitely have their own opinions. And Jacobs is always on one side, and he's always one way about his side. I'm sure Ed Snyder's probably lock stock with him right now. He probably would say the same exact thing. It's not a slam dunk, but there are other owners who are get us into Vegas.
That's really a great point, Eck. And a lot of their votes always come out 30-0 or 29-1, or
right.
But they're a lot closer than that, because what happens is that when you realize you're not going to win, you just throw in with the other side.
Yeah.
You might get not a united front. But there are a lot of perspectives on this: small market, large market. There are some franchises that have concerns about travel, and some who don't. I mean, it's a very complicated matrix that somehow Bettman sorts through. I mean, Brian Burke says this all the time, but I think it's really an apt description. He compares Bettman to a Chicago a political boss like Mayor Daley in the 1970s, and his ability to bring sort of everyone together and build consensus. So I think this is sort of an indication of that, but I don't think it really changes anything. But you made a point before, and Ty did, about there's so much talent available to put two teams, and about some of the players have been sent down. I mean, that's probably a pretty good jumping off. Like Twitter was just alive and a buzz over Marco Dano today, and that's worth discussing as well. I mean, he was considered a key component in the Brandon Saad deal and played well at Notre Dame in training camp and was projected maybe even to play on their top line. Now all of a sudden he's in the AHL. So it's a lot of it has to do with waivers and the fact that Bond, and I'd love to get Russ's take on Bond, who obviously kind of came out of nowhere in terms of making this team. I think some people thought he had a shot, but he's the primary reason I think that Dano didn't make the team is because the Bond played so well, and he's the grandson. I'm drawing a blank on his first name. What's his first?
Bob Bond.
Yeah, is it
Kyle Bond?
Kyle Bond, yeah. He's Bob Bond's grandson. And Kyle Bond has made the Blackhawks, it appears, and he's kind of stepped up. So Dano, but this is what my take on all this is. He won't be down there long. I think this is sort of the Blackhawks, kind of sending a message to everyone. Nothing's guaranteed. You got to earn your spots and so forth. But I think Bond played so well that they just felt like they had to put him on the team. Otherwise, it sends a bad message. If you can't earn your way on with a good training camp, then young players are going to be disillusioned. So
and I love that they send that message, because I've been harping on that the last few weeks myself in blogs. Just the fact that it feels like you can't earn a job, because and it's great that a team does this, and they also put Bickle on waivers. The Blackhawks at the same time.
Right.
So
yeah, that's not. I mean, it's startling, but certainly not surprising. And I know that sounds like a contradiction, but they've been trying to get rid of him, obviously, and not because he can't play the game anymore, but because he costs too much money for what he accomplishes, and they weren't able to do it. So now they're going to throw him out there and hope someone's they could still get some cap relief by sending him to the minors, but it'll be what, $950,000. So
yeah. Now waivers, real quick, but then I want to get opinion on Dano, Russ, from you. Waivers with before the season reverts back to last season's records. Is that true?
Yes.
So as far as the order you can pick up a guy,
Right.
like the first shot at Bickle.
So
Buffalo would have the first shot at Bickle.
Right.
It's just so much money, though. Does anyone really believe someone will pick him up? I mean, I guess it's possible, but boy, it just doesn't seem likely.
Well, I mean, according to Mark Spector, they entertained, or they tried to make a deal, Chicago and Edmonton, involving Nikita Nikitin and Bickle, and Edmonton said no thanks, and Nikitin's making $4.5 million and only has 1 year left, and I think that was the whole point, was the fact there would be cap relief going forward for the Blackhawks, but they didn't want to do that deal. So I don't know how much the opinion of Bickle has soured around the league. I mean, he's an effective player, but he's limited, and he's being paid way too much for the type of player that he is. So I think they're probably going to end up having to eat some of that salary, but that defeats the whole purpose of trying to move him. I think they want to get rid of that $4 million, and unless a team like, say, a Florida or an Arizona wants to take on that player, I don't see how they're going to be able to do it.
I heard they. I'm sorry.
What's sad about this is that Bickle still is an effective player.
Yeah,
he's caught because he's making too much money. Like if Bickle was $1.25 million, he'd be claimed by 10 teams.
Right.
He's a big, strong player, big, strong forward who can play a physical game and occasionally can score a goal. That's good enough to be a factor, but he makes way too much money.
And has shown to be a good playoff player too.
Anyway, we got to go back to Russ and ask him because I really would like to get a take on both Bond and Dano.
I mean, I think it comes down to Bond being the bigger guy, the more physical guy, and Dano being the guy that doesn't play a lot of defense. I mean, he never has, and he didn't have to in the KHL, and presumably I don't believe he did much last year either. So I think that's why they're sending him down to sort of work on that. And so they're going with the guy that's more responsible in both ends.
They're going with more experience too. Panarin made the team. Tikhonov made the team. Yeah. So it seems like they're going with the more surefire players than a young player who's going to make some defensive mistakes. I mean, Teravainen is going to be wonderful offensively, but I think he'll make as many defensive mistakes as Dano would.
Actually, I think he's even a little better defensively than Dano, to be honest. But you make a good point. He's still not without mistakes. But I think that's probably what they looked at and said, how many guys can we have that are potentially going to make mistakes playing in the kind of games we play in? So they're better off taking the bigger body.
Yeah.
At least today. I think Dano will make his way back up too. I do.
Yeah, me too.
Is he a top six type guy?
What's funny though is Panarin obviously hasn't been able to play much because he's had some sort of injury. So they haven't really got a good look at him, but obviously they've seen enough of him in the KHL, and he's a little bit older, so they obviously think that he can be a factor.
Well, the funny thing is that I believe that his name is pronounced Chris Kuss, K-U-C. One of the Chicago reporters was saying that the Blackhawks may be able to put Bickle on the long-term injury because he's been suffering from vertigo. And if that's the case, then the cap ramifications wouldn't hurt them, because then they would be able to avoid the $4 million cap hit because heuld be on LTIR.
I heard that wasn't the case though. I might be wrong, but I talked to somebody who said that. Yeah, I heard Bickle say actually. I heard that Bickle said to somebody that wasn't true, but for what it's worth, I mean, we'll see how that plays out. I mean, there are teams that I mean, I look at the Islanders and with Bickle, or there's a lot of money, but I do think that there's teams out there that could take a shot at him. Teams that need experienced playoff guys. That's what he is.
It's a lot of money. That would be hard for me to believe.
Well, I wouldn't see it as a pickup on waivers.
I don't think take him.
Yeah, I don't see it as a waiver pickup. I think he's going to go through waivers, and I think this is Chicago's. We've seen this before with teams where they put a player through waivers because they have a deal.
It's a fishing expedition.
Yeah, they have a deal that they could make that they don't really want to make, but they keep money and all that stuff. But they're going to try,
If they were willing to take Nikitin, and I'm not saying he's a horrible defenseman, but I'm saying if they're willing to take a higher salary in the short term in a deal for Bickle, then I think that scenario could play out in other places with defensemen who have salary. Yeah. And I'm just using this as an example.
They probably don't have a lot of cap space to do that.
Right, but I'm saying like if they would have done that for Nikitin, then they might be able to do it for. And I'm just using this name because Ak mentioned it in his blog. A guy like Luke Shen. I mean, if that would make sense.
Yeah. I mean, it is possible. I think we're not going to see him on the Blackhawks to start the season, though. I think we're going to see. I think Bickle. I have heard that there are options with Bickle, whether or not they get it done or not.
Yeah, he's pretty safe to not get picked up, I think. So I think that makes sense. I mean,
well, Russ and I the other night watched Mr. Porter play. This is funny. This is hilarious because we're watching. A guy gets waived, and then we show up at the rink and he's playing on the team, and then he scores a goal, and then he gets picked up the next day.
And I even looked at you and said, "Wasn't he waived today? Like before just as he scored the goal." I'm like, "What?"
He was on waivers. Like we reported 5 hours ago that he had been waived, and here he is playing. Apparently, and he scores, which is pretty. What a crazy day for this. Talk about 24 hours. I'd like to interview him about. Like he gets
the other notable waiver. The guy on waivers today was Colin Greening from Ottawa, and he's got significant salary for this year and next year. So I'm not sure. I mean, he's not played well the last, I'd say, year and a half. So I'm not sure.
I always felt he was rushed. I did.
Yeah,
you may be right. Yeah, on that.
It makes some sense.
Changing the subject a little bit, but I think it's kind of an interesting story, and we've all heard my why I'm bothered by the fact that my brethren don't seem to put enough stock into what the Masterson is supposed to be all about.
Right.
And players, like Jaromir Jagr should have won the award by now, and he hasn't. I'm also going to say the same thing about Coach of the Year, Jack Adams. Like I just read a story today where, in fact, it's on NHL.com, where they've already said that Dan Bylsma is the leading candidate to win the Jack Adams. Now, why is he the leading candidate to win the Jack Adams?
I have no idea.
Well, because Buffalo was poor, and what's happened and how that award has evolved is the worst team of the previous year that has success makes that guy automatically. And to me, that's bothersome from the fact that there are a lot of great coaches who have good teams every year that never get considered. And so their line of reasoning and the line of reasoning of many voters on this award, and I know I'm throwing a few stones at the broadcasters, but I've also thrown them at writers on the Masterson as well. But that's how they view that. Like if you had a poor season last season, you have a good season this year, and then that coach did a good job. And I don't think that's what that award should be about.
Well,
Joel Quenneville should be up for that award every year. Mike Babcock should be up for that award. So.
And that calculation should be thrown out this year specifically because so many teams artificially went down to try to get Connor McDavid or Jack Eichel. So
even if you don't take that into account, though, Kevin's right. I mean, it's almost like Bylsma's award to lose. And I can see why they're saying it tongue in cheek because.
There's go ahead, Kevin.
Well, it's just the team has changed too. I mean, it's not even not even the same team that was there last season.
Yeah, they're simply going to look at that team got 50 some odd points last year, and this year they got 80. So Eureka, he's got to be the best coach of the year because he has the greatest differentiation of points. It doesn't work that way.
Well, let me throw this out there.
He doesn't get 80. Like I understand we give preseason picks to who might win awards or whatever, but for the coach, when the whole team hasn't played a regular season game, that's the hardest one to even try and do, honestly.
Yeah, no, you're right.
I think the coach is the hardest award anyway because really, what do we know about this? This is the one thing. I mean, you can make the argument there are great coaches, but at the end of the day, I mean, really, how many points? We've talked about this before, Kevin. Like, how many points does that coach really mean to that team?
Yeah.
Is it 10 points? If it's 10 points, that feels like a lot, and all that is 5 wins out of an 82-game season. So, what are we? I mean, what are we really? I mean, could any of us just step in and coach these teams? Could they? I mean, obviously there's a skill to coaching, and I'm not trying to diminish it. But what it really is difficult to tell how much of an impact a coach has.
And it's even difficult to tell from talking to the players who are impacted by that coach.
Yeah.
Because we all have, and I just had this recent experience. There is a coach that is well respected in this league that I had a conversation with the player about, and I was stunned to find that he totally dislikes this coach. And I mean, to the point where he thinks he is not a good coach and that he's completely overrated. And if I said the story, but it was off the record, so I won't, you would be stunned by it. Because I think everybody in the league thinks this guy is a great coach, and there's been no suggestion that he has trouble with his players, and yet this this player said, he doesn't think much of him. So you can't even trust what a player
But then,
thinks
do you
about it.
chalk that up, Kevin, to a personality conflict that this player may have had with the coach?
Yeah, I mean, clearly it is. But the only point I'm trying to make is that it's really hard to find out how much impact a coach is having. You can use power of observation, and usually what I try to do when I'm trying to assess it is, how prepared is this team to play every night? Because that's where the coach has the most impact, in my opinion. Is does this team show up every night and play at a high level? Does he find a way to do it?
I don't see that. The funny thing is, I don't think it speaks well of a situation when, and I'm citing this specifically, where Mike Babcock yesterday commented to the Toronto media that he was thankful for the distraction of the Toronto Blue Jays playing in the American League playoffs, so the Leafs could sort of hide in the woodwork for the first 3 weeks of the season. To me, that signals he thinks this team is going to start off terribly.
That's Babcock having fun.
Yeah, that's Babcock 101. Yeah.
Yep. You're over analyzing that. You are.
Well, I know everyone's excited to find out where Slava Voinev's going to play this year. So I wanted to get that out real fast.
Magnitogorsk?
He is chosen to play for SKA St. Petersburg. So, or SKA St. Petersburg. I never know.
SKA, yeah.
Which I've talked to people who played there, like Robert Ashe played there, right? And it's
that's where Kovalchuk is playing.
It's apparently the most beautiful place to play in Russia if you're going to play for a team. From what I've heard, St. Petersburg is an incredible city.
What I heard through a Russian reporter friend of mine is that he got a hero's welcome, and to me that sort of makes me sick, because it's like we know what he did here, he goes there, and everything's just forgotten about.
Yep. Yeah. No, I agree. Other news quickly. Andrew Hammond's out for 2 weeks with a groin injury. Raise your groin if it's not pulled, I always say. No Hammond. This is I think it's actually a big deal that Hammond's not starting the season with. I know this is only 2 weeks, but I think that the fact is that Ottawa early on, Ty, maybe you can speak to this because you're in that division with them. Ottawa early on has to show what they did last year at the end of the year was real,
How many times have we seen this from the Sens? It seems that every time they make the playoffs, the next year they're a doormat for everybody else in the league. So they have to build this momentum. Obviously, I don't know if Andrew Hammond is the real deal. I'd like to think that he's somewhere in the middle between what he was at the end when he was struggling against Montreal and that 935 or 940 was he posted for about 2 months.
Yeah.
So the truth is somewhere in the middle there, and it's really, the Sens took a gamble by trading Robin Lehner, who many considered to be the number one of tomorrow once Craig Anderson did in fact leave. So this is a weird situation now for the Sens. They have a lot to prove. The front office has a lot to prove in terms of picking Hammond over Lehner. And it's going to be interesting to see. But obviously, I just look at the Sens team. There's really no major upgrade. So they need to have a strong start out of the gate, or this team is really just sort of back to where they were last year before they went on this major run.
But they might have a strong start with Anderson. He's completely capable. We've seen him for periods of time be very strong, so I don't see why we would think that it's not going to happen.
Well, Russ, I saw O'Connor play twice at the rookie tournament. And I'd spoken to a couple people, and they said the whole goal was to have him play heavy minutes in the AHL with Binghamton. So the weight is going to be primarily on Anderson the first.
Yeah, it'll be like Mackenzie Skapski. He'll play like one game.
Exactly, but still, having him up there and not playing games down the AHL. I think they would like to get him into the swing of things early on, and now he's basically going to be practicing and just sitting on the bench in Ottawa.
Well, Anderson's numbers weren't bad last year. They really weren't. He was actually fine. The difference here is Hammond
durability. It's durability.
Well, yeah, no, for sure. And Hammond was otherworldly. His numbers were crazy. Anderson.
But that's why I brought up periods of time. Like Anderson is used to being a horse for a certain amount of time, and there does seem to be like an expiration with him. But he's perfectly capable of coming in for like a month and getting him a good record.
Now,
talking a little bit about fan expectations. I want to get into a couple teams because they did promise this for Play It People today, and then we will I have a couple little quick news items. But so we've been talking all week, Ty, on fan expectations, and basically saying, okay, is a fan base code green, which means they're very happy with where things are? Are they code yellow, which means they're sort of, they could go either way. Is a fan base code red, meaning they'll only be happy with improvement, or double red, meaning that they're apathetic, basically. I wanted to get your thoughts on Boston, because a couple people, and maybe Mike, you can do Buffalo. But I wanted to get that. Yeah, what are your thoughts on the fan base in Boston, Ty? That to me is a fascinating one.
So, okay. So what? This is a complicated issue for sure.
Yes.
They understand that this team took a step back in a way by getting rid of Hamilton and getting rid of Lucic. They did bring in Matt Bolesky, Matt Irwin, and Jimmy Hayes. Those players are expected to sort of level off the production of those, players that have left. Also, Carl Soderberg did leave as well, which is a big loss too. But they have Ryan Spooner, so it's not as major a deal. So I look at this, and the team and the fan base expects a slight dip. But the problem is that you dipped last year and you missed the playoffs. So you can't miss the playoffs again. If you miss the playoffs 2 years in a row in Boston, massive changes will be sort of demanded from the fans, no doubt. And I do think that there are questions about this core, about the aging core, if you will, especially in the blue line with Chara and Seidenberg, and who is the heir apparent, what happens next. So I would say that they're in the middle there because they don't accept failure. Boston is a city where you can't necessarily say that you're gonna take a step back without saying, "Hey, we're going through a rebuild right now." They don't like being in the middle of the pack. You like being on the forefront or admitting that, hey, you're not going to win this year, and whatever. So, it's somewhere in the middle there. But with the Winter Classic, with everything they went through last year, the expectation is that this team will be better and that they will make the playoffs and that they will make noise. The problem is that they don't necessarily, I don't think, have the tools to do that. The only thing they do have working in their favor right now is cap space. For the first time in years, the Boston Bruins have cap space, and they can acquire a Dustin Byfuglien or a Brian Campbell, or they can make an addition up front if they really want to. So people are excited, but at the same time, they understand that this team is not much better than it was a year ago.
So put them at a code yellowish, I guess. Because one of the things I wanted your opinion on this one, Kevin, is when I've been doing these expectations for my blogs, I feel that a lot of times the coaching GM situation plays into this, right? That if a new coach, a new GM will give you a little bit of a boost. You're code green because you have a new coach, a new GM. They went with the same coach, of course, which is but he's a great coach. And the GM, and so you can say, okay, they have a new GM, that's exciting, right? But the GM situation in Boston it feels like a mutiny on the bounty new GM. It doesn't feel like they brought in a GM like out of nowhere. And this is the GM. Now it feels like they had a mutiny, and this is the GM that's kind of overthrown Chiarelli essentially. So that's why I don't think the GM and the coach really play into giving the fans them any break. And in fact, it might work the other way. There could be some Chiarelli fans. Is that possible or no?
Yeah, that's interesting that you phrase it like that because I think that's an apt description. But probably Ty's in a better position to answer that.
Okay, yeah, Ty.
He's losing fans. I guess best way I can describe that is a lot of the players that really subscribe to Chiarelli's sort of mindset have been traded or are out of town. Like Milan Lucic was a player that I was always told Peter Chiarelli will never trade. That is a guy that Peter Chiarelli loves and will not trade. He's going to be a Bruin for as long as Chiarelli's here. Chiarelli's gone. The next week, Lucic is gone.
Right.
Hamilton, another player that Chiarelli, salivated over really when it came down to it. He loves the idea of a big defenseman that's 21 years old, can move the puck and defend, pretty well, and he's gone. So, and I know that Hamilton didn't really want to be in Boston. I gather that from what they offered him and what he ended up signing for in Calgary. Which was a pretty big difference, no doubt. But if that were Chiarelli in charge, he probably would have offered the moon to Hamilton and basically forced him to stay in Boston. So those are some slight differences there. People like what Sweeney is preaching, I think deep down, because Sweeney has been very hands-on developing with a lot of these kids and a lot of these guys that are now going to be knocking on the door for the NHL opportunities with the Bruins. So he has his friends in there, but this does feel like Cam Neely's show now. This is Cam Neely's show. This is the team president ruling over the GM in terms of what he expects and what he demands out of the players. He's not hands-on, but he does have an idea of what he wants the team to be, and the players, I think, can feel that.
Interesting. Very interesting. All right, let's move on to Ottawa briefly, because we were actually talking about Ottawa, and I wanted to because I believe Ottawa's fans are code green. After all the stuff we discussed, I really, I had a lot of people who wanted to hear what we thought about the Ottawa fan base, and I've always thought the Ottawa fan base, I've kind of equated them to the Calgary fan base. If I was to pick two fan bases, there's a certain small town feel to Ottawa and Calgary, with their players, being that their players and their fans mingle a lot together in a strange way. It's a weird thing to say, but actually, there's only a few bars in Ottawa where the players go, where the fans are. So you always hear a lot about Ottawa players, and the Ottawa fans have a real admiration for their own players. And last year was the perfect, type of season for that, because they were underdogs and they completely they came through. So I think they're a solid green. I think the Ottawa fan base, I think Ottawa, they feel as if they won last year on house money, and I think they'll be okay. They would be okay with this team not making the playoffs. Not that they will love it, but I think that this is one fan base that could maybe say, okay, as long as they're competitive, we can make the playoffs.
I think the one thing with Ottawa is that fan base likes the fact that team, most of that team is homegrown talent. I mean, Mark Stone and Carlson. Yep. They've added some key players. They brought in Bobby Ryan. They acquired Mathot and signed MacArthur in free agency. But the young guys, the Zabinajads, the Stones, the Mike Hoffmans, they're all homegrown players, and I think that helps that fan base rally around that team. Now, that being said, I think one of the problems with that organization is the ownership of Eugene Melnyk has been interpreted as being very fiscally, I'll just say, responsible. And I think that's one of the criticisms. But they did make the playoffs last year. Everything was happy because they made that great run. But if they take a step back, I think that the fact that they didn't go out and make a lot of acquisitions and add to that group, that'll bounce back on Melnyk, and because they didn't open up the pocketbook and spend a little more money.
Yeah, I like what Ottawa's doing. They brought Alfredson back. Fans are happy about that. So I think they are green, but I'm not going to guarantee them missing the playoffs. And actually, I kind of like the move that they did, not making any cuts and letting their players bond first, to sort of let the younger players hang out with the older players maybe for that last time. Everybody on Twitter is just so waiting for guys to get cut so they could talk about it and writers can write about it. But they do have a very great continuity between the AHL and the NHL, one of the best. And I think that's contributed to their success, too. So I'm not ready to count them out.
Yeah. I think there's a trust with fans and Brian Murray as well.
Yeah.
I think they believe that he's made some nice moves to help this team and that he's a good evaluator of talent. And I think Melnyk's health issues also will earn him a bit of a free pass, this season. With that, in that regard, and this team is a credible team. We had this conversation before where I said I had a little chat with Murray, who said the defense is better than people realize, and other than lacking a flag carrier, he's pretty pleased with their offense. I mean, the only concern is that they're younger players who don't know what they don't know. Could get caught up in year two here of drawing a breath and go, holy cow, look what I did last season, and they really expect me to repeat that. So, but I like their goaltending. I know Hammond's injured, but Anderson is a horse. He's a war horse. Yeah. He's been around. He knows what to do. They've got options there. So, I think the fan base is green there. I think they're pleased with where this team is at.
I think that's going to be a fun one. I wanted to talk about Florida too, Kevin, with you in case you have to run. But Florida is a this is a fan base that is underrated to a degree, or is it not underrated? We don't. I mean, they're not papering the house anymore, so to speak. All this stuff. They've made all these statements.
I talked to Dale Talon. Now it must have been 3 days ago, and he said that acknowledging obviously that they start from a lower base than most teams, but he said the summer's ticket sales were good, were encouraging. Everybody that I know who deals with the ownership at the ownership level says Vinny Viola is a terrific owner. and that he's going to turn this around, and that he has no interest in moving this. So you got to be encouraged by that, and the team is better, and the defense was good. Their goaltending is first rate. I did a piece with Bukestad this week when I talked to him about the camaraderie on the team and the morale. It's just so high that Yager's come in and changed everything. And he told a story about half the team going to Willie Mitchell's house at Thanksgiving and how everyone came together. Now, what's remarkable about that is that Willie Mitchell by Thanksgiving had only been captain for about 6 weeks. Had come over from the the Kings and really not been an integral part of the team, but in a short period of time he really became a leader on that team. And these young guys are going to be better this season. So I think fans are encouraged by that. But Campbell's getting near the end of his career, and Luongo's no spring chicken. So I think there's still some worry there.
There's an interesting thing too, Kevin, with Rocco Grimaldi being hurt. If he starts the year on the LTI, well, not the LTIR, but just starts it on the IR, they said they may put Lawson Krause in there and give him his 9 games until Grimaldi comes back. And that's kind of an interesting thing, because then that will add some youth and toughness. And what if he were to stick? Like that would, we don't know. But
don't rule that out, Russ. We're considering maybe Krause and Bukestad and Riley Smith playing on the line.
There's a line lacking in size.
So,
So I mean, that could add something to that team, and I think Grimaldi will make it somehow. I think when you have a guy like David Booth who can't make the team in Florida, that tells you they're better.
Yeah. No, that was we didn't get into Booth's thing yesterday, but it was really interesting him talking about kind of what Ty was saying, that there's old players are getting phased out, but David Booth should be playing in the NHL somewhere. I think he should be, at least if he's healthy, he should be playing. Ty, what are your thoughts on Tampa and their fan base?
I mean, this is really cup or bust right now. I think that they understand this could be their last chance at Steven Stamkos. That's the biggest question mark surrounding this team right now. Stamkos has been playing with Jonathan Drouin through camp. They've looked amazing. Drouin looks like he can take that next step forward, which I would argue, he had, but he was in a third, fourth line role last year. He's playing 15 minutes a game as a rookie. I mean, which is natural because that team had so many veterans. But obviously, if you give him the minutes that some of these other rookies have, like a Johnny Gaudreau or a Stone, he could have posted maybe 50, 55 points. So Drouin looks like he can take that next step. They're still really deep in terms of their overall forward depth. Defense, it's looking pretty good. Obviously, you have some issues there with Matt Carl as a player that has slowed down a bit, and if they could maybe lessen his role, they would. And then goaltending, Ben Bishop's going to be the monster in there. I mean, he's going to be playing so many games probably just based on what we've seen right now, because they had Ray Emery. Emery stunk. They brought in Kevin Poulin. Kevin Poulin is sort of a work in progress, in my opinion, because he's never really had success at this level. They liked what they saw from him at the AHL level when they were going against him, so that's part of the reason why they nabbed him. But make no mistake about it, the fans in Tampa expect another deep playoff run. They're almost expecting the Stanley Cup just because the East in general is sort of in flux around them.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, it's Stanley Cup or nothing here in Tampa, and I think that's, well, I'm not here in Tampa, but you know what I mean. But yeah, so I mean, it has to be Stanley Cup. That's the end goal, especially if this is Stamkos' last year there.
Yeah, I think Bishop is a big key with his injuries. He's got to really be durable, and something that fans may not be thinking of, but Braden Coburn there for a whole season really does help that defense tremendously, because he was a big difference maker for them when they got him in a trade, and so that really does shore him up. And I think Drouin can get 60 points this year. I do.
I just rated NHL defenses, and before I did, as I am apt to do, I called around and talked to GMs and people about what their thoughts were as well, and I was surprised how many folks around the league like Tampa Bay's defense. Like I'm not bullish on it. Obviously, I love Strawman and Hedman, but I thought it really fell off after that. And yet around the league, people like Garrison and Coburn as being real serviceable players, and Carl as a guy that can still get it done, even though he's probably not the same player he was 2 or 3 years ago. So they do get some love around the league, surprisingly so. I don't have them rated among my top 5 defenses, but at least one GM that I talked to has them rated 5th overall. So
Wow,
Yeah, Coburn's a big minutes eater, and he's still a really good skater, and he really can cover anybody. Like, that's a guy you can put on your first pair, your second pair, wherever you put him, he'll do the job. I think in Philly he was just maligned because he was there too long. But I think for a team like Tampa, he's incredibly valuable.
yeah, and I think the Strom and Hedman combination,
Yeah,
the success rate of that pairing is so strong that the glare, blinds you to the fact that everybody else is just average. So.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
but the main asset for Tampa Bay is the depth of their forwards. I mean, when you can put out guys in your bottom 6 like Boyle, sometimes Killorn could move into the bottom 6 if Drouin takes a top 6 role. I mean, I think that is a distinct advantage for them, and it will suit them well when they go into the postseason.
Well, Ty's point was just terrific, and that is that if Drouin wasn't playing with Tampa, he might have been in contention for Rookie of the Year. I mean, he had 28 assists, well, hardly ever playing.
Yeah.
So, if he had been with a team where they weren't contending and they could afford just to throw him out there and live with his defensive lapses, then he could have had probably one of the better rookie seasons.
Yeah, no, I do agree.
and somehow he didn't get traded. Like, we were pretty much saying, like, so many people were pushing him out. Like, they were saying, oh, Drouin's going to get traded. Well, he didn't.
Well, no, I'll say this, and I really have it on a good authority that there were possibilities of him being traded. That this was not just a rumor. This was beyond a rumor. There were teams I talked to that actually did talk about it, and that it wasn't like he was going to be easy to get, but he was gettable, and and Tampa kind of let that be known. So but now I've always thought of Drouin like the perfect person to play with Stamkos. I mean, he is Marty St. Louis, just younger. He's the same kind of player to me. So if he gets that game going, why wouldn't he be the perfect person to play there? All right, let's finish up then with Mike in Buffalo, because he's and the Buffalo fan base and where their expectations are.
It's sunshine and roses in Buffalo for the Sabres. I mean, after 2 years of just the depths of despair and, but tanking last year, which they obviously did to get either McDavid or Eichel. I mean, now the new coach with Bylsma, but more than anything, it's the talent that's there. I mean, Jack Eichel is really excited the fan base. I mean, the anticipation of seeing him in the regular season, it's palpable amongst a lot of Sabre fans. I mean, he's played very well in the preseason. He had a very impressive shorthanded goal against Toronto that I saw on Tuesday night. He's got a lot of he's got a lot of speed. He plays at both ends of the ice. He's not going to be a defensive liability. But the thing is that the organization has smartly not put him out on an island where everything rides on him. They have veteran guys around him. O'Reilly's probably going to be the number 1 center, matching up against guys like Crosby and Johansson and other teams' number 1 centers. That allows Eichel to be the number 2 guy. They're giving him veteran wingers. He's playing with Matt Molson, so he can make plays, and Molson can stand in front of the net and deflect pucks into the net. So, they put O'Reilly with Evander Kane and Tyler Ennis, which is a very scary number 1 line, and then Eichel playing with Molson, and they may play Gergensons there. But, the top 6 is very good. The bottom 6 needs a little work. There are some decent players there. Their defense has some injuries right now, but Bogosian and Georgia should be back. The key player on the blue line is Ristolainen, who I think is ready to jump to a higher level. But the biggest key for them to be competitive, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but I think they could be competitive for a playoff spot if Robin Lehner turns out to be the goaltender that a lot of people thought he was going to be in Ottawa. If he has trouble like he has had with injuries and other things, then they're challenged in net. But if he plays 50, 55 games and plays well, they could surprise some people.
Yeah. I think that's really accurate. I wanted to just and it's hard. it's hard to say that Sabres fans aren't green, and that other people in the league aren't green with envy about what the Sabres have.
I mean, I was just in Buffalo, the same as Mike. People are really happy. They really are.
Yeah, that's very good. All right, so before we go, two quick things. I knew you would like this, Kevin, so I had to put this up for you. This is just every once in a while you see a picture, like a photo from the old days in hockey, like an actual photo taken with a quality camera of a rink. Because all the pictures, like when I picture Bobby Orr and Alex Delvecchio playing, I picture it in black and white in my head, because this is what I've seen all these guys, and I know they didn't play in black and white, but I never saw them play live. Every once in a while, someone took an old Kodachrome camera back then, and was a good photographer and takes a picture, and this is one of them. So this is Bobby Orr and Alex Delvecchio. Check this out. It's like
great photo.
Isn't that great? It's a high quality photo of the two of them playing. Look at the old skates and everything.
The shadows on the ice. Look at the shadows.
The shadows on the ice. Bobby Orr is a rookie in this picture. I mean, that's something. It's really cool. Look at the gloves on Delvecchio. Look at them. I just love stuff like this. That's really awesome.
I mean, I just finished a Flyers photo book, so I got to go through a lot of photos, and so I have an appreciation for hockey photos. Always have, and it's fun to go through it and see them. And I love this photo actually.
Yeah,
this is when I learned to love the game. Was that style, and there was more. The game was more personal then. There was more personality. I mean, the players were, not hidden by mask and visors and.
You can see how you can on their faces. I mean, seeing their faces, seeing their hair. Like seeing when the Flyers had their Broad Street Bullies and all their crazy long hair players.
You know what the biggest difference is, and Russ may be just old enough to remember it as well, is rinks used to be quieter, so you could actually hear what players were saying on the ice. In the '60s, for sure. And now, I mean, when a guy yelled for a pass, you heard him. And now we just got too much going on.
Oh, and well, don't get me started on this one.
Well,
but
no, that was the case up until I would say the early '80s, Kevin. Because I mean, when I saw games in the late '70s as a kid, I saw a bench clearing brawl between Toronto and Buffalo, and I heard the players. I was in the 200 level of the arena, and I heard the players clearly yelling and screaming and dropping certain bombs to each other back and forth. So yeah.
Yeah, that's totally different world.
You could hear it up in, when I started going to games at Olympia Stadium in the balcony. You could hear them because it was just so quiet, in games, unless there was something going on. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I love these kind of pictures. I'm so glad that I want to thank the reader who sent this to me, Tom in Calgary, sent it to me. But yeah, so cool. And finally, leaving on a happy note because this is it's Friday and. We've got Ty here, so we've got to, be a little bit happy. All right, oh wait, I got to find it here. This is very cool. Sean Monahan, okay, on Twitter. Did you guys see this? All right.
Monahan?
Yeah, Monahan. Sean Monahan on Twitter. Okay, so basically, let me find it right here. Sorry, where did it go?
Well,
all right. Essentially, what happened was a fan wrote in that he went to the game in Winnipeg. Here it is. Okay, we'll put this up here for all to see. A fan wrote, he went to the game in Winnipeg, and he's like, I'm a Flames fan. I took all the money I had. I don't have a lot of money, but I wanted to go see my Flames play in Winnipeg, so I took all the money, and I show up for this preseason game, and there's no Monahan and no Gaudreau. He tweets out. So Sean Monahan replies. He said, next time we're in Winnipeg, I'll leave a ticket for you. Message me your name. Pretty cool.
That's awesome.
That's way cool. Yeah.
Isn't that cool? I mean, it's a Monahan, followed him on Twitter, got the private message thing, and you quickly done and got his name. And, you felt bad this guy spent his money and he wasn't playing in the game. I think I love
fantastic. Yeah.
When players do stuff like that. That's all the time we have for the week, guys. Next week, okay, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're going to have super shows, maybe bigger, better, extended, and everything we have to do because we're going to have to get predictions in. Yeah, huge. Maybe we can get you and Ty on one of those days before the season starts if possible. And we're going to get into our predictions. Starting on Monday, one of the things we're going to do on Monday is, and I haven't even cleared this yet, Mike, so sorry, we're just talking about, Mike and I were saying, we need to talk about this. Well, here's we're talking about it now in front of everybody. But I'm just throwing this out there now that I believe I do a blog every year called my 30 wackiest predictions for the season. I'm going to throw some of our wacky predictions out for Monday and ask the crew on Monday to throw out. These are things that could happen, but are obviously crazy long shots to happen. But these are just things you have hunches on. We'll also get into predicting the divisions, of course, and all that stuff, and perhaps the preseason awards, with the exception of the Adams, because we already determined that we shouldn't talk about that one. Besides that.
And we'll do what we did last year, which I thought was one of our best shows, which was the over-unders. I think it's Bovada who provides the over-unders for the teams, and I think last year we picked 4 or 6, I'll have to look, but 6 teams and pick an over-under for.
All right, that was Kevin's idea last year.
I just got the Bovada odds today. They actually now do over and under on the number of points that each player is going to have.
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
Awesome. All right, so we'll have fun with that. We can also do that. We don't have to get all this in before Wednesday, because this, even though a couple teams will play on Wednesday, I still think it's okay to talk about the beginning of the season after the beginning of the season begins officially. So that's it, guys. Remember, what's up? You okay? Oh, that's Russ's dog. Sorry.
Oh, it's not mine.
My dog. My dog.
Speaking on behalf of Rocky, this is Eklund from the HockeyBuzzCast. Remembering, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Talk to you soon.